Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Francis from the Buds and Sports Podcast, and y'all already know what this is, man. Week one of the weekly waiver wire report. And what a week one it was. I'm sure there's a lot of managers out there kind of, feeling a little uneasy about some players. You're going to be looking to the wire today. I believe most transactions across all leagues go through tomorrow, Wednesday. So let's get right into it. I'm gonna go through each position, talk about possible pickups, probably best available options on the waiver wire, and guys that have potential in certain situations. So starting with the QBs, off the top, I like Marcus Mariota. He's currently at about 3-4% rostered across all leagues, so he's there. In most wires, he's there. And he's a dual threat guy, and that's great for fantasy football. The only downside I see with Marcus Mariota, where you might run into some problems with him, is just the strength of schedule as far as defenses go. At quick glance, he has to play the Bucks, the Niners, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Bears, the Rams. I think I said the Browns already. If I didn't, the Browns. All those teams, they have really solid defenses. So he could run into some problems, but he's not scared to run the ball. I believe he had 12 carries this last game. Had a rushing touchdown. Did not throw for any touchdowns. So he actually had a total of 1 touchdown, but still was able to put up 19 points. And that's largely due to his legs. He's not scared to use them. And that's great. That's great for fantasy football. So if you're looking for a dual threat quarterback, somebody who's going to be competing this season, and doing everything he can to win games, Marcus Mariota, I think, is a great pickup. I think he's going to be a popular pickup with people that need depth in the quarterback position. I don't want to say his name, but I guess Carson Wentz. If he's going to give you stat lines kind of similar to Jameis Winston, where he's thrown 4 touchdowns but 2 interceptions, you can take a chance on Wentz. Washington does have some skilled players on the offensive side. They have Gibson, they have McLaurin, even Curtis Samuel. It's kind of a dual type player, getting rushing attempts and also catching balls. And the strength of schedule is pretty favoring for the most part for Carson Wentz. So I would say those basically would be the top 2 names. Trying to make a case for any of these other guys, Tannehill, Mac Jones, Geno, Trubisky, be kind of reaching. But I do think Wentz and Mariota probably have the highest ceiling out of most quarterbacks that are left on the wire, if you guys want to take a chance on them. Moving on to running backs. Elijah Mitchell. If you're a Niner fan, it's kind of been the theme over the last few years. Injuries all through the season. So Elijah Mitchell gone for, I believe, at least 2 months. Jeff Wilson Jr. is the clear starter now. He's currently about 3-4% rostered, so he's available if you look on your waiver wire. So Jeff Wilson, he's going to get the starting reps. I don't know how much they're going to split between him and Debo, because I'm sure Debo's going to have a heavier workload coming out of the backfield. It also just depends how Mason and Davis Price perform behind Wilson Jr. If if they're not there and it's just Wilson producing, then Debo's gonna have to step in and kind of take that role, be a starting running back / wide receiver. But for the most part, Jeff Wilson, he's gonna be RB1, and he should get most of the touches inside the red zone and goal line, since he's proven that he can get into the end zone pretty efficiently. So look to get him. Let's see, Rex Burkhead. Surprisingly, very heavily involved in this offense. He had 14 carries, and he was targeted 8 times in the passing game. So Rex Burkhead is actually available in most leagues with only a 17%, being rostered at 17%. Sorry. Yeah, not the flashiest name, but if he's gonna see similar numbers to week 1, moving forward, Rex Burkhead is a good flex play, especially if he's getting both the carries and the targets in the air. I believe those are definitely my 2 favorite in the running back position this week. I'm just double checking my list. Yeah, I think those 2 names are probably the most worthy of being mentioned. Not really sure how things are gonna kind of pan out with the Bills. It seems like they want Zach Moss to kind of be the guy, or they brought him in to be that person, but he hasn't been able to. I think Singletary's been a lot more efficient lately, but they're still putting Zach Moss into the rotation. He did get targeted 6 times in the air, and he caught all 6 targets, so that's 6 points right off the bat, even though he wasn't that efficient with his carries, only 15 yards off 6 carries. But moving forward, I could see Zach Moss kind of sniping some touchdowns at the goal line. So if you wanted to take a chance on him, he's less than 1% owned across all leagues. So he's definitely going to be there. So yeah, Burkhead, Wilson Jr., Zach Moss, those would be the 3 names I talk about in this episode for running backs. Those would be my picks for the week. Moving on to the wide receivers. I sense really good potential from this guy. Just because he's healthy. He does kind of have an injury history, but the way they utilize him is perfect for fantasy football. He's a perfect flex play. You put him in the category with the Debos, Amon St. Browns, who else? Those receivers that are kind of being born into the league right now, physical receivers that can also play as running backs, or get the ball out in the backfield. Curtis Samuel on Washington. Curtis Samuel, I feel like, is going to be a little more heavily involved in this offense this year, more than people probably would have expected. And he is a talented guy. He's fast, pretty physical. He put up 18 points for week 1. Had 11 targets, was the most targeted receiver, even ahead of Terry McLaurin. And Logan Thomas is not a receiver, but he's also pretty heavily involved in the passing game for Washington, has been for a couple years. But Curtis Samuel led the team in targets with 11, and he had 4 rushing attempts. So anytime you get a guy on the offensive side of the ball that's filling out the stat sheet, both rushing and in the air, and they're doing it consistently, they're getting their opportunities consistently, So it's just week one. We got to see how consistent Curtis Samuel is going to be involved in this offense. But as long as he's getting both, he has potential for a very high ceiling. You know, he can definitely have a game where he's catching touchdowns and also rushing for a touchdown. So look to Curtis Samuel. I'm sure he's going to be very popular as far as bidding goes. But he's currently only 8% owned, so he's definitely on the wire. A lot of people are going to be looking for him. McCole Hardman, who I actually drafted deep, late in my own draft, but I ended up dropping. Scored a touchdown for the Chiefs. Chiefs are going to score a lot of touchdowns this season. Let's not overthink it. The Chiefs they're going to do what they do. They're going to light up the scoreboard. And yeah, McCole Hardman might not be a number one, but I think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns scored, and ball's going to be distributed, pretty well through the room. Juju did get most of the targets, Kelsey too, but everyone kind of had their opportunities to make plays. So I think McCole Hardman, if you're lacking if you're hurting very bad in that position, you could definitely pick him up. Also, might be somewhat of a gamble, especially with his injury history, but Sterling Shepard is pretty efficient. He did not get the targets, the volume that you would feel comfortable with. He only got targeted 4 times. Out of the 4 times, he caught 2 of them. But he had a total of 71 yards and a touchdown. That put him at 15 points. I think moving forward, I don't expect the volume to stay at 4. I think Sterling Shepard is still clearly the number 1 receiver for the New York Giants. So I do believe that target floor will go up to around 6 to 8. And he's a talented receiver when he's actually playing. He does have trouble staying on the field, but as long as he's healthy, he's a solid play. He's a solid flex play. If you're lacking at the wide receiver position, you can definitely take a chance on Sterling Shepard. If we're just gonna keep the theme of 3 names, but just to throw it out there without talking about it too much, no, I don't want to talk about him. Duvernay is interesting. Duvernay is an interesting pickup. Definitely a boomer bust type of play, but I think with that Ravens wide receiver room kind of lacking a true number 1, Duvernay might see more opportunities. Especially, he caught all of his targets. He was 4 for 4 for 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. Put up 21 fantasy points for week 1. If he's gonna, I don't see why they wouldn't call his number more if he's gonna be that efficient. He will get his opportunities. So Duvernay could be a possible flex play. They do play the Dolphins next. Dolphins have a pretty solid defense, but they are at home. So, you could take your chance on Duvernay. We're gonna move on to tight ends. Tight ends, I like Taysom Hill, to be honest. Let me see what's his ownership at. Sorry. Yeah, currently 3 to 4% owned. Now, they did announce that Taysom Hill was going to be moved to tight end. But I think that's just his title, just to have a title for the position that he plays. But he is very much still Taysom Hill. They use him in gadget plays. He's using his legs. He's catching balls. I would not be surprised if he had a couple of moments where he's throwing a touchdown. Um, he's just does everything. He plays football, and for fantasy football, that's great. That's actually great. Um, so I do think Taysom Hill is a very solid flex play, especially on certain matchups. He's a very talented physical guy, and throughout the years he's been able to produce. So he's available. Um, I do think he might be pretty popular as far as how many people are gonna go after him. But hey, as long as he's gonna be a part of the offense in the way that he has been, it's potential to score touchdowns in almost every way, catching it, throwing it, running it. So why not? Why not take a chance on Taysom Hill? Another guy I want to talk about is Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas, throughout the seasons has been pretty solid for Washington. He's a tall guy, kind of a big target. And Carson Wentz is at least from what week 1 shows, Carson Wentz does not have a problem threw to him 6 times. So I do think, Logan Thomas does have a few touchdowns ahead of him. He does play Detroit this coming week. So I kind of sense somewhat of a shootout. I think Detroit is kind of set up to have a lot of shootouts this year. And I think Washington has just enough talent on the offensive side of the ball to kind of give Lions a game. Lions are still kind of building themselves, and they did kind of add to the defensive side of the ball, and they are progressing. They are getting better, but they're not quite there yet. So you're going to have a lot of competitive games when it comes to the Lions. I do see this being somewhat of a shootout. A lot of touchdowns, a lot of red zone appearances. So I think Logan Thomas gets a pretty good opportunity to score a touchdown this week. Hayden Hurst, clear starter for the Bengals, got targeted 8 times by Joe Burrow. Put up 9 points, no touchdowns. I say if you get a player that can get you around 10 points or higher, without scoring a touchdown, you can feel pretty safe about that. So Hayden Hurst, I do think, he does have some touchdowns ahead of him. He's a talented receiver, talented route runner, and a physical guy. So the 8 targets is promising. It means that he is going to be pretty involved in this offense. So look for Hayden Hurst. He plays a Dallas Cowboy team that's somewhat inflated right now. Or I'm sorry, deflated is the word. Deflated. They did not have a strong showing week 1. Their starting quarterback is out. Defense is really all they have, but the defense can only stay motivated as long as their offense is putting up points. Gets pretty frustrating if they're constantly making plays, but the offense isn't. And you tire defense out by going 3 and out all the time. So there's potential. The next 2 games actually for Hayden Hurst is the Cowboys and the Jets. So I think that's a solid pickup if you're kind of lacking at the tight end position. Tyler Conklin on the Jets. He got targeted 7 times. Actually scored a touchdown. Got 11 points. But, you take that touchdown away, he's around 5. Is it the best pickup? Probably not. But I think Tyler Conklin is probably the clear starter for the Jets. And, well, the Jets, they're gonna need help everywhere. They're going to look for anyone to make a play. I do think they are going to struggle to compete, but only if you're really lacking in depth at the tight end position. I'd recommend Tyler Conklin. I definitely prefer the three names I talked about earlier: Logan Thomas, Taysom Hill, and Hayden Hurst. I think you can feel pretty good about those guys. Sorry, screen went black for a second. So that pretty much wraps it for the tight ends. Quickly looking through the defense, I like the Rams defense against the Falcons. They're over 30% rostered, so they might be available in your league. I like the Steelers against New England. New England's looking a little rough on the offensive side of the ball. It looks like Mac Jones is going to have somewhat of a sophomore slump. But I'm not going to lie. Losing TJ Watt for the Steelers defense does kind of put that defense ceiling lower. But just strictly matchup-wise, I do like the matchups that the Steelers have on their schedule. So the Steelers defense currently sitting at 61%. So most likely on most leagues might not be available, but still in a lot of leagues they're there. Let's see who else has a pretty good matchup. I like those two. Jets defense against the Browns, strictly because, they're playing with the backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, who's not terrible. But Browns are also kind of struggling to find their rhythm on offense. They're going to rely heavily on Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. If the Jets are able to stop that, then Browns really can't do much. And on the flip side, you could go Patriots. Bill Belichick always, puts out a solid defense. Steelers with Mitch Trubisky don't really quite know what's going on there. Najee Harris injured. So I really do feel like this Patriots-Steeler game might be somewhat of a low-scoring affair, but you can take your chance with them. They're only currently at 21% rostered. So Rams, Patriots, Steelers, Jets. Those would be my top picks of this week. And kickers, I'm going to pick one kicker. And I'm going to go with Suckup from the Bucks. 25% rostered, so he's going to be available in most leagues. Tampa has a good offense, so even if they don't quite get it all the way into the end zone, I do feel like they always have a high chance to at least get the ball down the field and get into field goal range. So I think Suckup is in line to kick a lot of field goals this year. He just has to nail them. I know that's asking a lot for kickers today, but he's going to get his opportunities, especially on this offense. They're at Saints this coming week inside the Dome. So great condition for kicking. And it's a division game. Usually the division games in this division, outside of, playing against Carolina, they're exciting games. They're usually pretty high scoring games. So I think Suckup is going to get his opportunities. And that pretty much wraps it for all positions this week. Let me know in the comments who you think your sleeper pick is, who you're going after this week in the waiver wire. There are going to be a lot of drops this week. I think some managers are going to panic early. Look for drops from, Cam Akers, Robert Woods, Cole Kmet, Devontae Smith. If these are guys that you can see having a bigger role later in the season, or just kind of having on your bench as security just for, injuries happen in this league. So, yes, Darrell Henderson Jr. might be the starter right now. But if he goes down, Cam Akers is clearly next in line. How efficient Cam Akers can be or will be after his injury, we still got to see that. But until he gets that opportunity, we might not see a lot of Cam Akers. So you can have him as insurance, though. Running backs go down a lot. But yeah, let me know what your guys' recommendations are, who you like, who you're eyeing. And that's it for the week 1 weekly waiver wire. Let me try that again. And that's it for the weekly waiver wire report. This has been week 1. Join me again next week. I'm going to do this every single week till the end. And yeah, hopefully you can take some information from these episodes and get you in position to win your leagues. But this has been Francis from the Buzzin' Sports Podcast, wrapping this thing up. Join me next week for week 2. Peace.